Straight all day.
Now tuned in to the best of the best. This is the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that will move you to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together in one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, this masterclass here that is known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and today's topic is invest in your investments. Invest in your investments. Now, in masterclass number 609, which I reference here all the time, we talked about the 5 forms of investment in life: time, money, attention, energy, focus. Now, what we're going to talk about here today is going deeper with your investments to make sure that those investments provide maximum return on investment for you continuously. Okay? So once you've made an investment into something, there are continued investments that you need to be making to make sure you are producing maximum ROI, to make sure that those investments are giving you back what they're supposed to give you back. You got to keep making those investments in those things. Just investing one time is not the game. Okay, the game of investment is you're doing it over and over and over again. As long as it keeps paying you back what it's supposed to, or at least what you expect it to, then you can keep investing into it, and it just keeps making sense. And it's a win-win situation for all parties involved. Point number 1, today's topic once again is invest in your investments. Once you are in to get better results, you got to go further in. Once you're in, you want those results to improve or to continue, you got to go deeper. All right, the deeper you go, the better the results will get. Again, if you have made a smart investment from the beginning. For example, if you purchased a Ferrari for $200,000, you're not going to go and get your oil change and a tune-up at Jiffy Lube for $15. Why? Because you already invested $200,000 into the car. So why would you hustle backwards and go cheap on the upkeep of this investment that you've already made? You would rather go to the Ferrari dealership and pay probably $2,000 for the tune-up and the oil change, and that is what it costs. $2,000 for that oil change and that tune-up instead of the $15 at Jiffy Lube. Why? Because to go cheap on the maintenance of something that you already invested in would be a stupid thing to do. That'd be hustling backwards. If you're gonna go cheap on the maintenance, you shouldn't have bought the car in the first place. If you're an athlete, for example, and your body is your business, it wouldn't be smart for you to eat fried foods and drink soda and not get proper rest, because you know that that's hurting your ability to produce results in the long run, which is what keeps the checks coming in the first place. The fact that you can produce results out on that field or on that court or in that pool with your body. But here's the challenge with going further in for everybody. Once you've made an investment and to continue to make deeper investments into that investment, the challenge with that is this. If you decline to do this, if you decide to take your Ferrari to Jiffy Lube, or you decide to put fried chicken and french fries and soda into your body and not get any sleep and drink alcohol and smoke, and you're an athlete, if you decide to do this, you can get away with it. You can actually continue to perform. Your car will continue to drive fine on the road after you have declined to make better investments into your investments. The Ferrari will still run, your body will still jump high and run fast, and you'll still be able to make jump shots even though you've been putting the wrong stuff into it. But here's the second order consequence of making that bad decision of not investing in your investments. The bill that you owe for those bad decisions, it will arrive to you, and you will have to pay it, and it will be due immediately. But that bill shows up so much later after you made the bad decisions that you probably won't even remember that the errors in judgment that you made so long ago are the reason for that bill. You will think that it's something that happened recently to cause a bill, but no, it's a decision that you made so long ago that you don't even remember. This is why you got to pay for it now. This is all one of the principles of the third day. If you haven't heard me talk about the third day, of course, I have some masterclasses where I have talked about it. Masterclass number 907, how to make it to the fourth day, and in masterclass number 1262, how to handle the first day in life. If you don't know about the third day, I suggest you read my book, Work on Your Game, where I did a whole chapter on this whole concept called the third day. So the challenge with not going deeper into your investments is you'll get away with it, but The day that you do have to pay for it, you'll get away with it in the short term. In the long term, you have to pay for it, but you won't even know that's why you're paying for it. So that's the challenge with it, is that you won't even realize the mistake that you made. Even when you're paying for the mistake, you don't even know that's why you're paying for it. So this is where your discipline and doing your due diligence and knowing what's going on in your business, the business of your life, that's where all of this plays in. And a lot of people don't know this. They are dealing with second and third and fourth order consequences for things that they did way in their past, and they don't even realize that it's the thing from the past that's causing this consequence. They think it's something that's happened in more immediate times. Most people only think of immediacy, what's happening now, but it's something that you did 5 years ago or 3 years ago or 6 months ago that you're paying for now. So that's why you really got to be on top of your business and paying attention to your investments, so you understand why things are happening, not just think that they're random happenstance. Nothing is coincidental or accidental. Again, let's move on to point number 2. Today's topic is invest in your investments. Point number 2, just because you have something does not mean you're set forever with that thing. Just because you won once doesn't mean you're going to keep winning. Just because you have it now doesn't mean you're going to continue to have it tomorrow. You can lose it just as easily as you acquired it. I'll tell you a quick story. I once had this bicycle. I think I had it early in my time when I had come to Miami. And I rode my bike one time from where I was living in Miami, which was mainland Miami, like the midtown, downtown area. I rode my bike over the Venetian Causeway, and I went somewhere in South Beach. And I parked my bike on a bike rack in South Beach next to a hotel. And I went inside the hotel. I was in there for maybe an hour or so, came out of the hotel, and my bike was gone. Somebody had stolen my bike off the bike rack, and the bike was locked on the bike rack. It's not like I just left it there like dumb. I put it on a lock. I put the lock on it, locked it, and somebody went and stole the bike even though the lock was on there. But what was the problem then? Here was the problem. I had secured my bike on that bike rack with a cheap $10 lock that I had bought probably from the Walmart or maybe from the bike store. I think I was in the bike store and I saw the locks. They had a $10 lock, there was like a $50 lock, there was like a $100 lock, and they each got more complex and harder to break and harder to steal a bike off of the higher the price. I went cheap on the lock for $10, ended up losing my investment of the bike, simply because I didn't invest in my investment. The bike got stolen, and I had to walk home. It took me an hour to walk home from South Beach back to Miami. Now, why did that happen? As I just told you, I didn't invest in a better lot to protect what I had already invested in. I had made an investment, then I went cheap on investing in the investment, and ended up costing me more in the long run than it would have cost me just to make a better second investment in the first place. So then the second order consequence. So the first order consequence is I got to save some money on that lot, right? Instead of spending $50 on a lot, I only had to spend $10. I won. But the second order consequence is my bike got stolen from me, so now I lost the bike and I lost that cheap ass lock simply because I was being cheap in the first place. So the second order consequence more than made up for, quote unquote, what I, quote, won, close quote, in the first order consequence. You understand? If you don't understand what I'm talking about when I say second order and third order consequences in life, let me tell you where that masterclass was. I just did that one recently. That was masterclass number 1306, understanding the levels of consequences. So I guess it wasn't that recent. It was over damn near 200 masterclasses ago. We do so many of these, it seems like they were recent, but they weren't. So that's masterclass again, 1306, understanding the levels of consequences in life. Just because the first thing that happens as a result of your action, you got away with it or it was a success, doesn't mean the second and third things that as a result of those actions are also going to be successes. You might have to pay for it later. You're still going to pay. You might end up paying extra. You might be paying with interest. So if you have a business or a personal relationship, for example, that you refuse to invest in, meaning you don't check in on people, you don't follow up with people, you don't service your accounts, whether that be within an intimate relationship or with a personal friend that you have or a business relationship that you have or a customer who's bought from you or even someone who's interested, a prospect, a lead who may be interested in what you're doing, you don't follow up, you don't service that account, you don't nurture your leads, then what happens? You lose those relationships. Just through sheer neglect, you lose them. I know people who, in my late teens and early 20s, they would brag about how they were in such great shape, but they never worked out. I knew people like this. They didn't work out at all, but if you looked at their bodies, again, when we were 18, 20 years old, they were in great shape. You know, they had the muscles, they had the tone, or if it was a female, maybe had a nice figure and all this stuff. And I say, well, how often do you work out? He said, I don't work out at all. Those same people, by the time when I saw them in their early 30s, all right, the story had changed. So let's just put it that way. Things change. don't take what you have for granted, because if you don't invest in it, then that investment may go away, or what was an investment now eventually starts costing you. It was paying you, now you got to pay it because you didn't invest in the investment. So once you have it, make sure that you keep servicing it, or you will lose what you already have. Point number 3, today's topic is invest in your investments. Remember that we are talking investments here, people, not expenses. An investment pays you back. An investment pays for itself. You put money in up front for an investment, or time, or energy, or focused attention. You put that in up front, but it gives you more back on the back end than what you put in on the front end. That's what makes it a good investment. Now, if it's taking away more than it's giving you, then it ends up being a bad investment. But sometimes you got to go through those to learn. Every investment that you make, you will be able to project how your action or time or conversation or this information, how is this going to help me in the long run? That's what an investment is. You can look at it and say, doing this is going to pay me back in the long run through this way, and that way. You can at least project that it will. Now, is it always going to work out exactly as you expected? No. Exactly as you predicted? Probably not. But you can at least project, all right, this is how this is going to pay me back in the long run. That's what investments are. You can see, or at least think you can see, how this is going to pay me back, how this is going to make sense and make me better in the long run, even though I'm giving up something in the short term. An expense, on the other hand, cannot do this. An expense is something that you say, all right, I'm giving up something now, and I can't see any way that in the future this is really going to make me better, but I'm giving this up right now. And sometimes we got to deal with expenses. Sometimes in life we have expenses, but many times in life we want to start thinking more about investment. Only investments can be projected to pay you back somehow in the long run. So the question that you need to ask is, how can I put my time, money, attention, energy, and focus into this thing, this person, this idea, this action that's going to make me better for the future? How can I invest in this and make me better? How is investing in this going to make me better? In what ways is this going to improve me? If you don't know the answer, if you can't figure that out, what you need to do is go seek help. Don't necessarily blow off that investment and say, well, it's obviously not a good investment because I can't figure out how that's going to make me better. No. Better thing is for you to go find some help. Go find someone else who maybe has already invested in it, or someone who already understands it, or someone who just may be able to see things that you don't see, have experiences that you don't have knowledge that you have not acquired, who can see how this is a good investment for you and what you need to do to make sure the investment pays off, things that you wouldn't have known because you just don't know what you don't know. So go get some help if you can't figure out how a certain investment is going to make you better, or if you can't figure out whether something is an investment or if it's just an expense. These are all the things that you need to be thinking about when it comes to investing in your investments. Once you have something, you got to keep putting things into it, because if you don't, again, it's going to go away. It will disintegrate. It will atrophy, and it ends up being a cost instead of an investment. Things can vacillate between the two if you're not paying the right attention. Let's recap today's class, which is how to invest in your investments. We talked again, masterclass number 609, about the 5 forms of investment. And if you haven't heard any of my other masterclasses on investment, I suggest you check out episode number 916, Warren Buffett's 4 principles of investment. Again, I already told you about 609. Masterclass number 106, why you need to invest in yourself. Masterclass number 1403, how to reinvest in your business. And masterclass number 1257, invest in your communication skills. And masterclass number 1222, what a pro athlete should invest in while playing. So I've given you several of these on investment, and I've talked about investment in many other classes that I didn't mention right there. But again, as a gang group member, you have access to everything. So point number 1, once you are in on something, to get more and better results on that investment, from that investment, you got to go deeper in. In other words, if you buy a Ferrari for $200,000 rather, you're not going to go get an oil change at Jiffy Lube for just $15. You will go to the dealership, the Ferrari dealer, and you'll pay $1,000, $2,000 for that tune-up and oil change, because you know going cheap on maintenance will be hustling backwards. You might as well not have even bought the car if you weren't going to go deeper and make a bigger investment into it. If you're an athlete and your body is your business, it wouldn't be smart to eat fried food and drink soda and not get rest, because that will hurt your ability to produce results on the field or on the court. And producing results on the field or on the court is what keeps the checks coming in. The challenge with all of this is that if you don't do these things, if you don't go deeper, in the short term, you'll get away with it. But in the long term, when you got to pay that bill, when you got to pay that invoice, you may not even realize that it's the mistakes that you made long ago that is costing you right now. You don't even realize that it was your bad investments in the past. You attribute it to something that's happening in the immediacy of your life, and that's not even what happened. This is how a lot of people rock themselves to sleep, because they're not paying close enough attention to what they're doing and the results, the second and third order consequences of it. We talk about that in the third day philosophy. Point number 2, just because you have something doesn't mean you're set forever with it. You can lose it just as easily as you got it. I had a bicycle that I invested money in. I locked it up with a cheap $10 lock, thinking that I was getting away with only spending $10 on a lock. That was the first order consequence. The second order consequence is somebody stole my bike off of my cheap ass lock because I was being cheap in investing in my investment. This is the same thing that happens to people all the time in life. Just because you have a relationship or you got something working for you, if you do not invest in it, checking in, following up, servicing your accounts, you can lose that relationship just through neglect, not paying attention. I know people who, when I was in my late teens or early 20s, they would brag about how they were in such great shape, even though they never worked out. By the time they got into their 30s, that story was completely different. Do not take what you have for granted. Point number 3, remember that we're talking about investments and not expenses. Investments pay for themselves. You can look at an investment and have some reason to project reasonably how an action or time or conversation or information will help you in the long run. An expense, you can't figure that out because there is no payback in the long run. Only investments happen. So the question you got to start asking yourself is, how can I put time, money, attention, energy, or focus into this thing, whatever it is, this person, place, thing, idea, and make myself better in the future? If you can't figure that out, doesn't mean that what you're looking at is not an investment necessarily. What it means is you need to go find somebody who knows more than you and can see things better than you, or just see things differently from you, who can help you figure out whether you're making an investment or whether you are incurring an expense. Work on your game. Dre all day.